Welcome to today's episode where I'm speaking with Jo Holt, a women's wellness coach and personal trainer. Welcome to the show today, Jo. It's lovely to have you on. Just wanted to have a wee chat to you about your women's wellness coaching, what sort of services you provide, your experience when working with women of all different ages and different stages of their life. Just take it away.
Thanks for having me, Louise. This is new to me, so I'll probably stammer my way through it. So I've been coaching females in the fitness industry for just over 12 years now. A lot of the stuff I wish the information I knew now would have served these women better at the time when I was delivering them. Things such as female fans in training, when I used to work with mainly midlife women who were getting brought in on a government-led programme with the NHS, and they were getting taught how to change their eating habits that they'd maybe fallen into when they're providing food for families and cooking in batches and larger portions, and it was trying to teach them how to do better portion control and how to start looking after themselves now that their families have grown up and maybe left the nest, and how to change things and bring fitness into their life again. So had I known then really more about hormonal health, then I could have better served them. However, having not reached that stage in life myself yet, then it wasn't really on my radar. And at that point, that led me to kind of do GP exercise referral, because these women all had various aches and pains, all of them. But I can now, look back and think, osteoporosis, midlife, really, so a lot of it was the metabolism, everything now that I have knowledge that I've studied about the menopause transition, I can now see clearly why these women were basically underserved. And myself as a coach being on board, I was underserving them.
Yeah.
But obviously I've come to a level of acceptance that I only knew what I knew back then.
Well, you don't know what you don't know.
Sometimes it's not until... Sometimes it's like a lot of women don't maybe want a midwife that's never had kids to give them advice, because they've never been in that situation. I'm not saying everybody does, and I'm not saying that that's not, midwives aren't qualified to do that, because that's definitely not the case.
Yeah.
However, if I had somebody who hasn't experienced birthing, then maybe try and give me advice on how to resolve my pelvic floor issues when, they've not gone through that whole process, the hormonal changes, it might be fine for some, others it's not. I'm not saying that these people don't have the skill set, but there's another reason why a lot of women who've just had a baby say, I can do this postnatal because I've had a baby.
Yeah, and they understand the actual process.
And even the basic pre and postnatal qualification doesn't really serve the postnatal women as adequately as it should do. And I was that personal trainer that did mum and baby classes, that had the pre and postnatal, but I wasn't serving those women as best that I could do. I was being cautious. And that's what that minimum qualification teaches you, is to progress with caution, which then led me to, in that aspect, to go down the advanced pregnancy and postnatal, and then to further develop that, because postural changes were there that I wasn't qualified to address correctly, which then led to corrective exercise specialist. So it's always been, for me, it's about the women that's standing in front of me and how I can better serve them, basically. And that's the way my whole journey through being a fitness coach has been, in specialising in female health, because I've had situations, I've had 2 very different birth and deliveries, and the journey that I've had to go through for recovery for them, and then hitting perimenopause and how that's impacted me, so I think a lot of the time as a coach, you have to actually have walked the walk to be able to talk the talk.
Yeah, and I think, like you say as well, it goes back to the individual standing in front of you. It goes in any industry. So, for example, if you're a child in nursery, as great and as qualified as those girls can be, and those men maybe sometimes, does that mean that you entrust your child to that person because they have, well, not that they don't have compassion, they have the expertise to work with a child based on a theory and not lived experience, like we were talking about earlier. So and it's good that you've actually adapted and evolved yourself and your skills to be more attuned to these women, and that's probably more of a trust that they have in you as well, that you're willing to go through those learning experiences based on what you've lived through, but also in order to help people more and better serve them.
Always. That's always been the way that it is. I don't see the point in doing my job if I'm not 100% in it, and if it's not all about helping an individual. And I will take a course and further develop my knowledge, buy books, do whatever I need to do if it's just going to help one more person. If it's just helping that person that I've interacted with, that I've then felt them deeply of how their story has impacted their life, then I want to better serve them. I want to help them. I want to make I'm only a fitness coach. I can only make a small impact in their life, but even that small bit might just help them or give them the confidence or the motivation to go on and pursue what their heart's desire is, or what will take them to a next level to help move them forward, So that's, if I can just play a small part in that, then that's me. I'm content in life, that's...
So we've known each other for quite a while now, haven't we?
Yes.
I don't even know how long, but quite a while, and I think we'd actually met in the gym.
Yes.
Remember, we were in the old...
And then I was doing your massages when you were competing.
I know.
Yep.
Those sexual massages. No, I think that when we'd first met, it was just like, hiya.
Yeah,
it was just like
straight away.
Yeah, breezy and really good and good fun as well. And we had quite a lot in common, and we could see a lot of things and a lot of changes in the fitness world as well.
Yeah.
So what kind of changes would you say then that you've noticed going from where you've been, obviously what you learned when you'd first come into the fitness industry, the way that you would train people, to things that you do now that you look back and go, what the hell was I thinking?
I think my experience is probably pretty different from a lot of coaches, where I never went into mainstream gyms. I didn't like them. I didn't feel comfortable in them myself. I don't agree. A lot of the gym equipment is not made for women. Women have got, you're wanting women to lie prone on benches, yet women have got breasts of all different shapes and sizes, and it's not just a case of moving them out the way. And now we're moving into a more modern world where breast augmentations are part of that is where we're going. Women it's accessible for them to make changes to enhance their features, and they want to then look after their body and have this all kind of full package. And the gym equipment just is not suitable for that. So I chose to go down the route, because it was my passion as well, was mixed martial arts, and to go in that sort of gym environment, which is a mixed martial arts gym that we met in, and that's more like, I like the mats, I like the floor work, I like kettlebells. I like to be able to move my body individually. I've never been one for sitting on machines. I want my body to move. I'll go for a run. I'm not one for being in a treadmill, because I want nature. I want to be outside, and if it's raining or windy or whatever, I want to feel that. That's all part of the experience. I don't want to be pressing buttons to create an environment, an incline that I could get outside in the street. But that's just personal, and that's part of my upbringing. I grew up in an area where I had hills and moors, so I just opened my front door and ran, and I think I want to replicate that in my exercise. That's just what floats my boat, so to speak. So perimenopause, going off on a tangent. Where were we trying to rein that back in again? So I think my experience has been, unfortunately, working, again, I'm not going to stereotype and say that all mixed martial arts gyms are like this, because they certainly aren't. And there's hugely qualified coaches within those environments. My experience, my personal experience wasn't such. So I think when you've been around substandard and you know that it's substandard and your voice isn't being heard, then it makes you want to go off and do better. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's been made really easy because I just knew that what I was seeing within the I've been in 3 mixed martial arts gyms, and there's only one that I keep returning to, which is the one that you and I would meet in. Yeah. Because I know the qualifications of the staff. I've been in and I've performed jiu-jitsu there. I attend classes. I attend classes myself to see what coaches are delivering. And I think that was always part of my journey as well, to become a fitness coach, or when I first started to do fitness, was to actually do the classes myself and see how other coaches were delivering and how I would do things differently. Why are they doing that? What is that doing? So straight away I can see if somebody's overworking a certain muscle group, you know. And I mean, the last gym I was in, there's a circuit class working the same muscle groups with every single exercise. And that's soul destroying because you know that that's now going to cause injury for people, overworking their musculature. That's just, it's not good enough. And I just want to raise the bar with that so that people know that they are trusted with their personal trainer. Yeah,
definitely.
And for a woman to be able to come into that environment as well, knowing fine well that she's got a female, and I'm not against males doing female health, and I think it's great that men are in tune with females. There's just certain conversations that women might not feel comfortable having with male coaches. And I can totally get that. You and I probably wouldn't bother. I don't care. I would say what I needed to say, or I would have a conversation. I will go to depths that probably a lot of females wouldn't go. But especially around midlife women, where their confidence is going, you know, everything, their body they feel as if their bodies are failing them. So for them to actually come into a gym environment, for them to actually get the motivation to get up off the sofa and come and see you, do they really want to be talking about their pelvic floor with you? Do they want to be talking about their bladder incontinence? Do they want to, you know, with a meal? So if I can start the conversations in a gym environment and make it relaxed and make it just normalised, because, you know, I can relate to certain issues myself, then I think that puts me in a better place as a coach to be able to work with these women.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. And I think that doesn't necessarily have to be in the perimenopausal phase of life. That can be really any phase. Like you say about the motivation, I think it's hard enough for us to be motivated, to get out, to actually want to make a change. But when you get there, then you're hitting barriers, and especially in the more commercialised gyms where it's very aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah,
everyone's
there's mirrors everywhere. Women do not, for the most part. Most of the women I come across and that I'm coaching are not taking selfies and posing and pouting, and it makes them feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But absolutely. The mere fact that they're there should be highly commended. You know, because it's what it's taken them to actually get to that position. And I'm not saying it's the younger girls' fault. Obviously, it's not. They're just brought up a different way with the social media and stuff like that. Yeah. That you know, the next generation, the previous generation wasn't used to. You know, so this is just a whole new environment, and it can be really uncomfortable.
Absolutely. And I think as well, that was one of the main reasons why we had started the outdoor gym project. I know you've probably
I think
seen
it's
some
fabulous.
Of the, yes.
I love it. I fully encourage you to put on a costume and get outside and not care what anybody else thinks.
Why the hell not? Like, I think that was the initial thing. It was before COVID had hit off, and one of the things I was noticing in the Partick community was we had these exercise machines in full view, Mansfield Park, and no one was really using them.
Yeah.
Kids were kind of like, playing about in them and things, and I thought, well, why not utilise these? Why not get people out that are intimidated to go into gyms, that don't have the confidence, that don't maybe have the money to afford to pay for a membership for a gym?
Yep.
Just come out, we'll go on a Saturday morning, we'll have a laugh, we'll dress as ridiculous as we can, we'll play the cheesiest music and just even
love
dance.
it.
And it went on. I mean, we started that in 2019, in January 2019, and that the last one was last year, 2023. And we made videos from them and just daftness, really, just to replay, the absolute embarrassment. But it reduced the person's fear and the anxiety of being around that environment, because we were making a fool of ourselves for them.
Yeah.
So they didn't feel so bad.
I think this is the problem with our society, is that they feel they can only make a fool of themselves if they're absolutely bladdered under the influence of alcohol.
Yeah.
That's when their self-confidence comes up, and that's the society that we live in. That's that's been created, is that you can't be your authentic self. You can't show up authentic unless, you've got a drink in you, and then you're up, and then you'll maybe sing in the karaoke or whatever. I hope that this generation, having young kids and seeing how the schooling environment is, then it's all about trying to make them feel comfortable in their own skin, positive, perfect how you are, whereas we weren't brought up that way. So hopefully the next generation coming through will have more. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe this social media and the pouting is all the confidence that these kids have got. So maybe they won't need alcohol as much to feel that they can.
I guess in a way, but I think there's probably the opposite side of that is the fact that they're maybe overconfident with nothing else to back it up, which that's a bit of a subject for me, a controversial subject. I think we have to have a bit of balance in everything, and a lot of that is respect as well, not just for yourself but for other people. And I think that there's a lot that's missing. But going back to sort of the topic of the conversation, because we tend to go off on a tangent. We do that on the way here as well, where we're like, what the hell are we talking about? Oh, can't remember. Oh, look, a seagull. So I wanted to touch upon something that's probably more recently I've come across with lots of clients that I see in my work and things. And it was nothing that I had really considered before, because we don't speak about it. Things are kept, it's quite taboo. And a lot of like perimenopausal women and menopausal women would come in and would speak about their experiences of menopause, and some were really kind of horrific.
Some women are really struggling.
Bladder control, incontinence and things. I mean, I know you hear about that in childbirth and after childbirth and things, but not everyone goes through these experiences. And certainly I hadn't been through anything like that personally, and none of my friends would kind of maybe touch upon that subject. So I was blind to this, and I was hearing a lot of things from women younger than me, and I thought, my God, does this really happen? And that's probably quite naive from my perspective, but obviously we had chatted about things, and you were saying about all the coaching that you were doing, as well as the fitness sort of PT, and you were going about like behaviour and sort of food and nutrition and all the kind of singing and dancing things that come along with PTing, but more about postpartum and the sort of pelvic floor and perimenopause and how that affects a woman as she changes and her body changes as she gets older. So talk me a wee bit through about what kind of your experience is with that with your clients.
I would say a lot of my experience is that women are just told to Kegel. However, it depends what a woman's birthing experience has been like. A woman could have a hypertonic pelvic floor, which is tension, and it might be caused by trauma, scar tissue, if they've had a episiotomy. There could be various reasons a woman living with constipation. So to tell these women to Kegel when they've already got an overly tight pelvic floor is just detrimental. And your pelvic floor is a muscle, like any other muscle in your body. It needs to be lengthened to be strengthened. So to tell somebody to constantly contract a muscle,
then shorten it, and then
you're shortening it. So when the moment of need comes, i.e. an impromptu sneeze, then that muscle has not been worked at its full length. So it's not going to give you a full contraction in that impact moment that it's required. There's so much that we've been told, just hold on to it. You know, women are given mixed messages all the time. Practice holding on to your urine so that you can then get good bladder control. But then there's urge incontinence. Don't go for a just in case pee before you go out the door. But that's okay telling these women. But the women that I'm around are planning their day around where there's toilet breaks, where they can fit in. I can't go to that park because there's not enough toilet. I mean, they're actually planning their day before they're going out with their children, or whether they're perimenopause, or whether they're going with their aunties, their grannies, and they're having to factor in all this. They can't just get up and go out and enjoy their day. We'll go here. It's like, well, if I go to the toilet before I go out, is there going to be another toilet there? Is it a big walk? Because I can't be too far away from a toilet. You know, there's so many issues, and that's when I digress again. That's why I'm all for the unicorn cup, because if a woman's menstruating, or if they're in the perimenopause stage where their menstrual cycle can be all over the place, there's not always. It's good that there's got free period products now in certain points, but it's normally in council points. It's normally in larger environments, not in your wee cafe, unless the cafe owner has decided to do that. So always having to make sure that you've got products with you. I'm a massive advocate for the unicorn cup, because the menstrual cup, it doesn't matter, even in perimenopause, when your periods are fluctuating and you don't know whether they're coming, whether they're not, if they're going to be short, if they're going to be long, or what they're doing. A unicorn cup kind of saves you having to worry about carrying extra stuff or being caught short. But these are all things that women are wearing dark clothing because in case they have an accident, in case anybody sees it, and I need a cardigan that's long enough, and all these things that men are not having to think about when they step out the door.
Yeah, and I think as well, just to touch upon that point, and I don't think it's from a misunderstanding from men. I think it's just maybe an embarrassment from the women's perspective, who'll maybe not want to discuss it. But then that can cause, well, why are you in a mood today? And then that can maybe cause an argument and things. And it's so avoidable.
Because I'm so uncomfortable and I don't actually understand what's going on in my body, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know what the facilities are going to be. And women have got so much more to think about than what men have.
Yeah.
So when I'm working with a female, even they've just come to me for a regular personal training session, I will ask them about these kind of habits. I will touch base on what their if it's a specific postnatal kind of MOT that they're doing, their return to exercise for the first time, then it will be in-depth screening to find out what their pregnancy and their birthing experience was, any past injuries, anything at all, any medications that they've been on, so that I've got a real good picture of what might be going on at their pelvic floor, then their specific exercises, and integrating their breathing strategies, because your internal organs are all getting shifted out the way. Your centre of gravity is all moving out the way. So to come straight back in and just do regular exercise and make sure that you can maintain a neutral pelvis and integrate your pelvic floor, which is, as you know, part of your kinetic chain. That is part of your whole musculature, and making sure that you move properly. So I always want to make sure that women are feeling what they're supposed to be feeling, that they're integrating that. And a lot of the things that I find are women are in a reverse breathing pattern. So even when they're talking, they're putting pressure down their pelvic floor, but they don't even realise they're doing it.
Right, okay.
So what I would probably say to a woman is, and it's a workshop that I purchased that was to deep dive further in. I'm always buying wee snippets of workshops, wee things from other healthcare providers, because somebody out there might know a missing bit of information that I can't tie into this person. Or so this workshop, and it's so useful. And I'll say to a client, imagine I'm holding a cake with 100 candles on it. I want you to blow out those candles slowly and tell me what's happening down in your pelvic floor. Is it rising or falling? So when they're blowing out nice and gently, if their pelvic floor is going down, then every time they talk, they're probably putting pressure down in their pelvic floor. So if their breathing strategies aren't correct, then whenever they go to lift weights, they could inadvertently be putting pressure down to their pelvic floor. And it's okay, people saying, you know, inhale and exhale when you're coming out of the move. So say you were doing a squat, exhale on the rise. If they've got a reverse breathing pattern, they might be exhaling, but it's not to say that their pelvic floor is doing the same thing. It's doing what it should be doing. And again, there's only certain times. You wouldn't have to cue it all the time. If somebody's got a hypertonic pelvic floor, you wouldn't want to cue them. You want your muscles to be working with your breath and doing what they should be doing at the right time. So it's things like that where I think a female is in a great place to be able to have those conversations and discuss those things.
Yeah, and even be aware of these things. So what would happen in that case, for example, if they were breathing and kind of forcing the pelvic floor down?
Well, you'll see it with some power lifters, you know, when they're having a pee because, you know, they're breathing, their bracing strategy maybe isn't correct. Or maybe I've seen one where they're just chasing the PB and not really bothering because they just think, well, that one bit of pressure, that one time that they're putting that additional pressure, they've wet themselves, and that's just because. And that's fine if that's what they want to do, but have they thought about how that's going to impact them when they start to lose their hormones later on in life and they don't have their estrogen, they don't have their, you know, their pelvic support for when they're moving on through midlife and onwards.
So what would happen in that case then?
Well, that's why a lot of women, when they're losing their hormones, you know, their estrogen levels are decreasing, and you start to, the muscle tissue thins. So therefore you don't have that structural support anymore that you used to have. So, and then as a woman's aging, it's like I'm trying to find the words to say it that's not a Jo saying it. So things dry up and reduce and shorten.
Right.
So basically that is what's going to happen to a woman's pelvic floor, which is why women beyond the age of 65 don't get smear tests anymore because it's too uncomfortable. So, and then again, it's why women's libido falls off midlife, is because it starts to get uncomfortable with them, and it's because of lack of hormones that they've got. So there's just lots of factors to take into considerations when working with a female demographic.
Yeah.
And a lot of things that women are not getting told as they're coming through the midwives or as they're coming through their whole birthing experience. It's just like everybody's just playing their part. Right, I'll take you to this part, and then from there on, this person will take you to that part, and then if you need a wee bit of recovery, this person will deal with that bit, but that will be a lengthy wait, and you'll only get one muscle will work on, and then you'll have to go back into the system again to then wait for the next muscle to be worked on. You know, it's...
So what about someone that hasn't had any children? What happens there in that case then? Obviously they still go through the hormonal changes as they approach sort of menopause and midlife and things, but do the same sort of symptoms occur in those types of women? Very much
so. Yeah. I have a family member who hasn't been pregnant and in her early 40s couldn't jump in a trampoline, you know, because they didn't have the contraction in her pelvic floor, so hadn't been working the muscles in the pelvic floor. Very fit, very active, so just would have no reason, can go out running, can go on an exercise bike, can go and do things. So would have no reason to think that when they jump on a trampoline, that it would make any difference. But obviously there's been no pelvic floor integration into your workouts, which would have been required for her, not necessarily for another individual. And that's why I don't sell online programs for women, because I don't believe if I gave out this advice, here's a 6-week, follow this, and I don't know what that woman's birthing history or pregnancy history was, or I don't know anything about them, am I really serving them well? Because the advice that they could be following on my programme might not necessarily relate to them, and it could actually be making them worse.
Yeah.
And that is my biggest fear. As a coach, I no way want to make anybody any worse than what they've already experienced, because they're having a crap time as it is.
Yeah.
And they're relying on me to be able to help them move forward and improve anything that's happening within their body.
Definitely. I think that's just like having a nutritionist and not giving you a full assessment of saying, do you have any allergies?
Yeah.
Or let's explore this, why you're having this reaction when you eat this food.
Yep.
It's very much the same of, having a bigger picture of the person's overall requirements, what they need and what's going to benefit
And a
them.
lot of time you can only get that from one-to-one conversations. Even in a screening form, folk will not give you the full picture in a screening form, because there'll be a wee snippet of a conversation that creeps up. Oh yeah, I twisted my ankle, or I broke my ankle back on a holiday when I was a teenager. And you don't get that on a screening form, or not all the time. Some people do have really good memories, but lots of women,
not in perimenopause.
Yeah, lots of women are they're so busy all the time, they can't remember all the fine details about everything. They're already remembering what their kids are doing, what their husbands are doing, what their parents are needing, what it's constant for them.
Definitely, yeah. So are you taking on new clients then?
I am at my capacity just now, because being a midlife woman who then had a baby at just shy of my 46th birthday, then I'm back curtailed to the school holidays. So there again, there's not, my experience of falling pregnant at 45 for the second time was when I went, I'll never forget it, when I went into my GP surgery, I had to get my flu vaccination to protect the baby. And for the nurse to turn around and say to me, oh, IVF, clearly. And I said, I beg your pardon? And I went, no, actually, natural. And she was like, oh, it's just not a lot of women your age can have babies. And I just thought, this is the nursing, this is, you don't know how that's impacted me. I'm already haven't announced my pregnancy for fear at my age that things will go wrong. So I'm very cautious, because the media, everything that's out there is saying, oh, if you get pregnant at a later age, you're more likely to have a child that's got Down syndrome. And that's not to say these things aren't true. Yeah. But a woman of my age falling pregnant already has those deep-seated fears and worries about what will happen if, that's I'm okay with that. If something does happen, I'm okay with that. It's my choice to go through with the pregnancy, and I will fully take on board whatever happens as a result of that. However, what if I miscarried? What if so I've already got those fears. Yeah. And then when you go up the hospital, you're a geriatric mother. I think you're geriatric from 30 or 35. Well, I had my first pregnancy at 35. So I was already geriatric, let alone being, here I am again, 46. But again, I had extra tests, which I was okay with, because yes, I'll take all your extra tests and it's reassuring. However, to go up there and every single appointment was, we're just doing this routinely because you're far more healthier than most of the young girls, the 20-odd-year-olds that come through our doors. This is just tick boxes, tick boxes, tick boxes. And then to go to your other nursing appointments to be met with that. And I think, well, I'm an older woman and I can maybe have a thicker skin, But if this is what young girls, if this is what, women with, I can't imagine women going through their deliveries during COVID and how they had no support network and how they couldn't have all their group classes and how they couldn't have that. So you rely on your medical professions. You want them to make you feel comfortable and reassured. But that wasn't my experience in that situation. Thankfully, that was just an isolated one. And as I say, being in the health and fitness industry, I know my own body. So I knew this was a healthy pregnancy. There was just those wee seeds of doubt that you were trying to squash.
Yeah.
So again, perimenopause, where were we going with that? I went off again in a tangent.
I think you were just talking about your sort of 2 pregnancies at different stages of your life.
Yeah, so then I breastfed for 2 years, so I know the impact that had on my hormones. Mm-hmm. And I had a clear cut, bang on, maybe finished breastfeeding at 2 years, which was basically because of lockdown, and I didn't have any choice, and you were stuck at home with a child. So I ideally would have done it before that, just because lockdown was so hard at that stage. So then I had a small bit of time to try and let my hormones readjust, and then straight into perimenopause. And I knew that because of the overwhelm I was feeling with life.
Right.
And I'd coped with having a young baby. I'd coped with all that okay. But then just after the 2 year mark, when my hormones should have been settling down, it was such a low, not depression. I've had depression before in my life. It wasn't depression. It was this low mood where life wasn't giving you any joy. And I had a baby, and I've got a teenage son, and I love my children, but I wasn't feeling any joy in life. And then, unfortunately, when I went and expressed that to my doctor's surgery, antidepressants were the answer. Mm-hmm. But then it was more antidepressants, and then it was a stronger dose of antidepressants. And I was like, but it's not, I don't feel depressed, and these are not doing anything for me. They're not changing it. I feel as if I could take 20 of your tablets and it's still not making a difference. And even when I went on their support, when I finally got support from Stepping Stones, and it was Zoom calls, and I think you get 6 or 8 weeks. Every single session was talking to my counsellor about the impact of hormones on female health. Every single session. It wasn't really about strategies that I could put in place to help me feel. It ended up being more of a, oh really? Because we work with midlife women all the time.
So you were actually educating them?
I was actually educating them. So that made me then, I went for a social enterprise, because I thought, well, if I can then teach communities about the impacts of hormonal health, because women are turning to alcohol.
Oh, definitely.
Now, we all know. Mm-hmm. I mean, I lived in my mother-in-law's house in Bearsden, and all you could hear were the blue bins jingle jangling. We've had this conversation.
We have. Mm-hmm.
And women are losing their hormones, and they're turning to some sort of stimulant to make them feel better, whether that be sugar, whether it be alcohol. And right now, I can't believe the conversations I'm having with midlife women. And it's edibles.
What?
It's edibles. It's taking gummies or cakes to chill them out, because they're losing their progesterone, they're losing their keep calm and carry on. Yeah,
Just to say, obviously, because you have quite a wide range of clients that you work with, but quite a lot of them are quite well off, aren't they? They're quite educated women.
Yep.
So it's not just one sort of facet of society.
No.
That you would maybe imagine would be turning to these things.
Nope. I had an experience, and it was a woman in a tenement house in the West End, and that was a really surprising conversation that came out of nowhere, and I love that about midlife. We have surprising conversations that come out of nowhere, and I thrive on that, being around the women and having these conversations, because there's maybe things that you're thinking about yourself that you wouldn't maybe dare say to the next person, but then somebody said it, and it's brought out all this, oh really, blah blah blah. And that's how conversations evolve, and that's how you help people ultimately in the day. But yeah, so apparently, you know, there's websites, there's WhatsApp groups, there's all sorts, there's TikToks and there's shops and there's, you know, and these are all coping strategies that women, professional women who, because let's face it, we all know the stats where midlife women are dropping out the workplace. And when you think about it, most of your NHS nursing staff are females, midlife, who are all experiencing perimenopause, menopause, that they're in a hot environment. And what are women suffering from a lot? Hot sweats, hot flushes, and the impact that it has on women on a day-to-day basis. You know, I've spoken to women who are having meetings and they really cannot concentrate because these flushes are coming up from them and it's all they can think of. And they've in a room with men and some other females all waiting in anticipation for them to say something, and all they can think about is in that moment. And this overwhelming feeling. I'm blessed that I haven't, touch wood, I don't know whether I will and whether that will be later on down in my journey, but I haven't had that.
Yeah.
I have certainly experienced the night flush, the night sweats, which is a total different thing to hot flushes, and the insomnia. So I think those with that, the overwhelm, the increase of anxiety, the lack of confidence in what you're actually saying, or that you'll find the word that you need to find. And this is happening to midlife women that are in the workplace. And they're really struggling to do their jobs. I held a workshop, a free workshop, and there was a woman there, and she said she had a high-powered job. And when her perimenopause journey started, she had to give that up, and she could barely have a job that was 2 days a week in a checkout. And I'm not belittling that job. It's just she couldn't think.
Yeah.
She couldn't, like me right now, it's like I can't form words sometimes. I can't form sentences to get the right words. And a lot of the time I've got to Google search the word that it is that I'm trying to, because I know it's on the tip of my tongue, but I don't think it makes sense. So then I've not got the confidence to say it.
Yeah. Second guessing yourself.
And women are going through this, especially in the perimenopausal stage. They're going through these fluctuations. So when they've got their hormones, you know, they're feeling good, they're feeling okay, and I'm quite confident, and then their hormones start to go, and then it's like, oh, I don't want to go out, I don't want to do this, I don't want to, you know. So they're different. They're a different person every single day.
Yeah, and I think it can just be rectified by a simple case of going to someone that they can talk openly about and they feel that they're being listened to, but also it can
normalising it.
Yeah, it's normalising, but I think it's not so much about focusing on what's wrong, it's focusing on, right, okay, what's right here, what are the good things, but how can we help you to improve your quality of life? And it can be something as simple as just going on like a hormone sort of therapy process. Yeah. Not for everyone, but it can be, and it can also be through diet and lifestyle.
I did everything first. I cleaned up my diet. Not that my diet was ever bad, because that's not me. I don't do clean eating, but I do try to eat from nature when I can. I'm not into eating takeaways a lot, but then I'm also a busy working mum who has to make it sustainable and make it work in my family life. And I've lost it again, honestly.
My God.
Honestly.
I'm not asking you back.
I know. There's too much to talk about.
No, definitely. I think we'll probably stop there just now. I've got the girl from the Unicorn Cup. I'm going to see her in September. We're going to have a wee chat about the product and everything. Brilliant. Just help to kind of bring awareness about that. But if anyone wants to get in touch with you, how can they get in contact?
My website is womenslifecyclewellness.com. I am contactable. I'm either or Jo Holt PT on Instagram, and I'm always open to a chat. Drop me a message. You don't have to book a session with me. I'm more than happy to help anybody that's struggling and just wants a wee bit of guidance a wee bit of direction, even because I don't believe that I can solve everything for females. You know, if a woman comes to me and I can't help her, I have absolutely no qualms referring her out to a pelvic health physiotherapist or wherever they need to go, whatever specialist is the right person for them. So if I can help and use the network of contacts that I have, then I will certainly refer out and try and guide them as best I can.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for having me, Louise. Thank you.
Put your links in the post and the description. So thank you very much.